My wife born and raised on the shore. She's the daughter of a fifth-generation waterman.
Oh,
And when we got married, she said, "We can live wherever you want as long as it's on the eastern shore of Maryland." Well, my dad's a pastor, and so growing up, we moved around. Every 3 or 4 years, we were living in a new place. And I spent a lot of that time in Tennessee, a little bit in Florida, a little bit in Texas, and then when we, I guess it was about 16 or 17, he took a church in Princess Anne in Somerset County. And my wife was going to that church, and we met, fell in love, and the rest is history. I kind of keep coming back to three things. The first being to work to reduce the taxes. And as the economy is starting to rebound, the county is taking in more money. And I believe the first thing that we should be doing is working to repeal the recent income tax increase that we had a couple years ago. Bring that back down to what it was. The second thing we need to do is just make sure that the county is having common sense budgets that meet the needs of our constituents without needlessly growing the size and the scope of government. We've now got to start funding the teacher pensions. Additionally, they're telling us how much we have to spend on education every year, and that's a set increased amount every year. And if we're not growing the base of taxpayers, if we're not bringing more people in through increasing our economy here, then we're going to have to either reduce services or raise taxes again. And both of those are not good options if we want to maintain our quality of life. And then the third thing we need to do is just work to improve our education process to make sure that our graduates have the skills that they need, that employers want, so that we have a great pool of talent for employers to pull from when they open businesses in Talbot County. That's why I keep coming back that we have got to make sure that we have that we're growing economic opportunity here. If more people have jobs, if people have better paying jobs, then there will be more taxes that are being taken to the county government, and we'll be able to afford that increase in education spending that the state is making us lay out. So that's important. I think it's also important to remember when we talk about the wealth formula that we do have a lot of high-end property values here in Talbot County, and that skews the chart a little bit. But if you look at the average weekly pay rate, or if you look at the average annual income, the median income, Talbot County is below the average in Maryland in both of those categories. And I think it's a little misleading to say that we are a very wealthy county. We have some very wealthy properties.
Right.
But in terms of the average citizen in Talbot County, the average taxpayer, they're not wealthy. And that's important to remember that. I think that number 18 probably refers to just brand new construction. In terms of just general permits, there were several hundred permits that were issued last year for any scope project. But it's important to remember as we think about permitting processes, if somebody's wanting to do something small, like put a deck on their house or add a generator to their house, and if they have to sit around and wait for 2 weeks or 3 weeks to be able to get a permit to get started, that's an electrician that's not working. That's a general contractor that's not working. And that just delays the economy, and it ultimately forces us all to pay higher prices because we have to subsidize the electrician not being able to work for 2 weeks and the contractor not being able to work for 2 weeks. So we need to make sure that, particularly for these small projects, that we make it as simple as possible, that people can get the work done that they want to have done without needless delays. I think it could be handled administratively, just by making sure that as applications are turned into the building department, that whoever receives the application first is able to take a look at it and make sure it's complete, and it can be processed in a timely manner without having to go back to the applicant a week later and say, "Oh, you forgot to fill out a certain portion of this." I think probably another solution could be to offer a different tier system for permits. So you have small projects that could go into almost an instantaneous permit, something very small that you want to do at your own house. And something like that, it should, for a small deck on your house for a generator, that shouldn't take 2 or 3 weeks. That should be, no more than a couple of days tops. I think it's important to make sure that our sheriff has the resources that he needs to be able to fight the war on drugs effectively. But it's also important to remember the decision to use drugs is a personal decision, and as people make that decision on their own, the sheriff isn't going to be in their home to make sure he's not or she isn't taking drugs. So rather than trying to legislate a solution, I think the best thing to do is to encourage community-based groups such as the Talbot Partnership, which is working to fight drugs. Actually, today I was at the DARE graduation at Chapel District Elementary School, and that is a sheriff's funded program. things like that, my business helps to support the DARE program. We have certificates that we give to the children when they complete that gives them a free meal at my restaurant. And so we've been doing things like that, and I think other businesses in the community need to get involved and help support efforts like that are going to help with education, and then just help encourage parents at home as they're raising their children to make wise decisions so that they can achieve their potential. It's important to note, the spending was cut from about $81 million in revenue down to about 65 or 67 million. It took a big hit a few years ago. Now we're back up to about 75 million for the 2015 budget. So we are starting to see revenues come back into the government. And as I've been going to the council meetings and listening to the budget presentations, I'm seeing not only are the revenues growing, but we're seeing growth in other areas of government by refilling positions. And some of these things may be needed. I know the Sheriff's Department's hiring a couple of new deputies, and most of the hiring took place in public safety sectors, which is good. But rather than focusing on, okay, now we have more money coming in, what are we going to spend it on? Let's say, okay, we're going to keep the size of growth, keep the growth of government where it is, and let's start returning some of the money back to the people since we took the money from them in the first place in an emergency measure. And it doesn't make sense to keep rates where they are if the increase first took place just as an emergency measure. I've never run for office before.
Okay.
I have been involved in politics with the Central Committee in Talbot County for the last 3 years, and so I've gotten to know most of the candidates, and I got to know the City Council very well through that process, and been able to spend some time with them, understanding some of what's going on in Talbot County. And the more I had those conversations with the City Council and with other elected leaders, the more I realized this is something that not only that I want to do, but something that I feel called to do. And as I look at the current council, I see each one of them has had a unique area where they've been focused on whether it's the environment or education or spending. But in terms of just being able to focus on a big picture of Talbot County and maintaining our quality of life by attracting businesses and helping to increase economic opportunity here, I haven't heard anyone talking about that. And that's why I felt compelled to run. And when I heard Tom Duncan was retiring, which was going to be an open seat on the council, and now we've had Andy Hollis drop out, so actually there's 2 open seats on the council now. At that point, that's when I really said, okay, we've got an opportunity here to bring a new voice to the council without taking away from what others are doing. It's important that businesses know about Talbot County and they know about Easton. And the Talbot County Comprehensive Plan is basically driving new growth into the existing towns where we have sewer and police services and fire services. And so it's important for the towns to be able to have their own economic development officer that's working to help find places, ideal locations within the towns. But ultimately, at the council level, we're working to help put pressure on the towns to make sure that they understand. We want economic activity in Talbot County. We want a thriving local economy. We want opportunity for our kids after they graduate college or after they graduate high school to be able to have a vocation here, or be able to come back after college and open a small business here, or practice medicine here, or whatever their dreams are. We don't want to lose our kids. They're our future, and we want to keep them here in Talbot County. But in terms of making sure that people outside Talbot County know about Talbot County, I think that is something that the Economic Development Office can do, particularly if we're working to create an environment in Talbot County that is going to be attractive for businesses. Businesses need to know about it, and that's the role of the Economic Development Officer, to help bring new business in. And when you drive around Easton or you drive around Talbot County and you see boarded up businesses and empty warehouses, that's not a good sign, and that's not good for our future quality of life. And I would like to see those development officers looking to fill in those empty spaces. As I'm thinking about everything with the county council, I've tried to maintain kind of the big picture idea and remember that ultimately the quality of life in Talbot County is what's most important. And while I feel the economic piece is a huge part of what's going to guarantee our future quality of life, I'm not so focused on any one issue that I'm going to lose sight of the big picture.